Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into one of the most massive, yet somehow totally under the radar financial shifts happening in America right now. I mean, picture this. It's 2020, the whole world is essentially shutting down. Offices are closed, schools are virtual, and right in the middle of all that chaos, the government does something pretty much nobody saw coming. They hit pause on student loan payments. Zero interest, no due dates. Just absolute financial silence. For over 40 million Americans, this was a massive, completely unexpected breather.
So for 3.5 years, bills that used to eat up $3, $4, or maybe even $500 a month, gone, frozen in time. People finally had a second to breathe. But, well, here's the thing about frozen things. Eventually they thaw. And when the payments restarted, what we're calling the Great Thaw, something happened that no one really wanted to talk about. People just stopped paying. Not because they forgot or because they didn't care. It's because a huge chunk of the population had literally rebuilt their lives around the absence of this bill. Let's look at exactly what happened when the ice finally broke.
Anatomy of a crisis, the fallout. We're looking at a staggering, immediate fallout here. The sheer scale of this is unlike anything in recent memory. 2.6 million. The New York Fed released data showing that roughly 2.6 million federal student loan borrowers defaulted in just the first quarter of this year alone. Just really think about that volume for a second. 2.6 million people in 3 months. And honestly, that's not even the full picture, because that number follows nearly 1 million more defaults that piled up late last year. Millions upon millions of Americans just falling behind on a debt they theoretically had years to prepare for. And here's where the stereotype completely falls apart. 39 years old. The average person newly falling into default is not some reckless 22-year-old fresh out of college who doesn't get personal finance. No. The average defaulted borrower is almost 39. And the absolutely crucial point here is that a lot of these folks were completely current on their payments before the pause even started in 2020. They were paying on time, every single month, they were doing fine. But then life handed them 3.5 years of not having to think about it, so when that bill came roaring back, it just completely broke their financial ecosystem.
And the damage? It is definitely not abstract. On average, borrowers who default are taking a massive hit. We're talking an average credit score drop of negative 91 points. To put that into perspective, a 91-point drop isn't just a tiny bump in the road. That can instantly be the difference between getting a mortgage and getting flat-out rejected. It's the difference between a fair interest rate on a reliable car and getting trapped in a predatory loan. This one single number can quietly dictate the next decade of someone's financial life.
So you're probably wondering, why? Why are so many responsible adults suddenly drowning? Well, it boils down to something psychologists and economists call payment normalization. When you go over 3 years without a bill, your brain literally stops budgeting for it. It's wild, but it's true. During that pause, people bought cars, they signed new leases, they had kids. They took on perfectly reasonable financial obligations based on a monthly budget that no longer included student loans. So when that payment, often $400, $500, $600 a month, suddenly returned, it didn't just squeeze their new budgets, it totally obliterated them. But hey, it's not all just psychology. We are looking at some severe structural failures too. The systems that used to handle all these payments went completely dormant. Loan servicers lost staff, their communication systems got rusty. So when the floodgates opened and payments resumed, these systems were woefully understaffed and, in a lot of cases, just outright broken. Borrowers have literally reported not even getting bills in the mail, no warnings, nothing. They just woke up one day to a notice saying they were in default. It was a massive institutional failure crashing right into a vulnerable consumer base.
The macro context, economic backdrop.
To really wrap our heads around this explainer, we need to zoom out a bit. This student loan crisis, it's not happening in a vacuum. It is colliding with massive red flags across the entire American economy. Look at total household debt. It has climbed to $18.8 trillion. Trillion, with a T. Now, credit card debt did actually tick down slightly by about $25 billion, sitting at $1.25 trillion. Sounds great on the surface, right? But dig a little deeper into the delinquency trends. That little drop, it's basically just seasonal muscle memory. People paying off their holiday spending early in the year. The real story is that credit card delinquencies are remaining incredibly stubborn, barely shifting from 8.7% down to 8.6%. So we're left with this bizarre, uneven landscape. Total debt is up, student loan defaults are spiking, and credit card delinquencies refuse to budge. It's like several quiet crises all happening at once, making each other worse.
The human impact. Real people, real debt.
You know, it is so easy to throw around words like trillions and percentages and totally lose sight of the reality on the ground. But we cannot forget that these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're the pandemic nurse who took out loans to get a degree, worked grueling overtime during the absolute worst of COVID, and now finds herself buried under a bill she genuinely can't pay. They're the small business owner who smartly used those loan-free years to reinvest in his shop and now faces a massive payment that competes with making payroll. They're the single parent who paid perfectly on time for a decade, hit one rough patch with inflation, and watched their credit score completely collapse. These are just ordinary people who made totally reasonable decisions, but got caught in a system that changed the rules way faster than their lives could adjust.
The unseen toll of this whole thing is perfectly captured right here. Financial stress isn't just about numbers on a page. It bleeds into everything. And it really does. It bleeds into your sleep, your relationships, your mental health, how you function at work. When we say student loan defaults are up 2.6 million, what we are actually saying is that there are 2.6 million households lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to do math that just doesn't add up anymore. The psychological weight of this is absolutely staggering.
The ticking clock. Consequences. Okay, if you take away anything from this explainer, let it be this next part. We really need to escalate the stakes here, because the most urgent, critical piece of this story is that the worst consequences haven't even started yet. Right now, this is a crisis on pause. Collections on defaulted federal student loans are temporarily frozen. But when that pause lifts, and pretty much all signs point to that happening, the fallout will be devastating. Borrowers are looking at wage garnishment. That means a chunk of your paycheck is legally withheld before it even hits your bank account. And by the way, the government doesn't even need a court order to do it. Your tax refunds? Seized entirely. You could even lose eligibility for federal benefits. When this switch flips, that 91-point credit score drop might look like a minor inconvenience compared to having your paycheck instantly slashed.
Steps to protect yourself. Actionable steps. But listen, we are not just going to leave you with doom and gloom here. There is actionable hope. Financial experts are strongly urging people to use this temporary window to their advantage. Here are 4 concrete steps you or someone you know can take right now. Step 1. Enroll in income-driven repayment plans. They do still exist, and they can drastically lower your monthly payment based on what you actually earn right now. Step 2. Start loan rehabilitation. Basically, by making a set number of reduced on-time payments, you can pull your loan back into good standing and often start reversing that huge 91-point credit hit. Step 3. Communicate. Call your servicer. Ask about hardship or forbearance programs. Step 4. Rebuild a reality-based budget. Not the ghost budget from 2021, but a real one for the world as it exists today.
The absolutely most crucial thing to remember is this: silence guarantees the worst outcome. Look, I know dealing with messy, understaffed loan servicers is a nightmare. It's incredibly frustrating, but ignoring the problem, that is the single biggest mistake you can make. Just reaching out, even to just say, hey, I can't pay the full amount right now, almost always opens up options. Deferments, forbearance windows, that staying totally silent keeps shut tight.
Which brings us to our final thought. Debt crises, they rarely announce themselves with a loud bang or some dramatic stock market crash. Nope, they creep in quietly, one missed payment at a time. It just looks like millions of individual quiet failures happening household by household. The calm we're sitting in right now? It's just the calm before the storm. So ask yourself, when the collections pause finally lifts, will you be a step ahead of the storm? Please don't wait for the numbers to get too big to ignore. Take action now. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. If this helped you grasp the real story behind the headlines, make sure you're subscribed so you can follow along as we continue tracking this ticking countdown. See you next time.